And it is 2:30. Welcome, everyone to College Council. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I have the honor and privilege of being the president of San Diego City College. College Council is the highest level of governance on our campus, comprised of leaders from the various constituency groups. If you would like to bring an agenda item to College Council, you can do so one of two ways, either by reaching out to Tia or Angel in my office, or working with the leaders from the constituency groups that I am going to be introducing. Before we get into the introductions, let me do the land acknowledgement that San Diego City College acknowledges that our campus sits on the traditional land of the Kumeyaay Nation. We recognize Kumeyaay people, past and present, in their land with honor and gratitude. Speaking of honor and gratitude, it is my honor to serve alongside our amazing faculty, classified professional supervisors, managers, and certainly our students. I spoke to Mona today. We're going to keep her in our thoughts. She was not feeling well. She did say that she is supportive of moving forward with the voting items. So Mona's not here. Tilly threw out the first pitch for the softball game today, so she will be making her way here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I had a meeting to run over. I see Robbie is here, Dean of Information and Learning Technology. Present. Caesar's the Public Information Officer. Daniel is the Supervisory Rep. Present. Sunai is the President of Chairs Cabinet. Susan is the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness and Co-Chair of City Planning. Present. I learned that Dee is not here today. Michelle is the reason why we are all here, the Vice President of Associated Students. Present. John is traveling and Roxanne is here in his place.
Mona's gonna join via Zoom.
I thought Marciano was going to have a designee. He is also traveling. Sean is the president of the Classified Senate. Present. Justin is the past president of Academic Senate. Present. And Marco is the coordinator of professional learning. He is not here either. And those are our leaders of the constituency groups. If you would like to bring an agenda item forward, you can work with one of them or my office. We would be happy to discuss any matter. Speaking of discussing matters, well, actually, I was going to jump to number 3. Let me get back to the agenda. Item number 2 is approval of the March 4th meeting minutes. If someone would like to make a motion for approval. Caesar, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Daniel. Any further discussion about the meeting notes for March 4th? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone like to object or abstain? Hearing none, motion carries. Now I get to get the item number 3. Had a chance to tour the farm that is between the tennis courts and the gym. And today looks like we have Kevin, who I believe is doing double duty as the chair and the senator. One of our great faculty members, and the dean over the area, Letty, who is going to be leading us in an update of the SEAS program. Letty?
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. Abby is not able to be with us today. She's out sick. And in the place we have Kevin co-presenting with me on the following slides. So we prepared a slide deck. I don't know if you can show that. So this is an update to College Council and College Committee about everything we've done so far.
I don't print PowerPoint, just.
So what we have done in the past years, post-COVID, right, to bring awareness to the program, to the that Farm program as well as the Sustainable Agriculture program. we've all come to the realization, thanks to the help of our institutional effectiveness office, that we have to do a lot better to attract more students into the program. You know, hear a little bit more about how we're going about to do that. So, this slide.
Sure, yeah. So hi everyone, I'm Kevin. I'm the chair of the life sciences department at the college. Our life sciences department includes our biology program, allied health program, sustainability program, as well as the sustainable learning program. As Lefty mentioned, Abby was not able to be here today. So I'm just here kind of filling her place, but I just want to preface this with most of this work that's been done with the sustainable urban agriculture program has been under Abby's leadership as a part-time faculty, as well as the other part-time faculty and our 2 part-time advanced lab technicians that serve the farm. So what I'm going to present on first is kind of just the non-instructional component. Obviously, we offer classes and certificates and degrees. But what we're first presenting on is some of the other things that are happening around campus that the farm supports. First off, you probably all see the emails for the weekly farm stand that you'll get from Javier. That's on Mondays, 12:30 to 2 p.m. where they sell produce that's produced right here on our campus. They also send a lot of that food over to the Knights Food Pantry for students to be able to utilize there as well. So we donate 220 to 430 pounds of produce per semester, which is several thousand, over $1,000 food that gets donated. On the next slide, you'll see our service learning that's offered by the Sustainable Urban Agriculture Program. Just an outside of the class experience for students and public volunteers to be able to participate in. And it's like work experience essentially where they get to work on the farm and learn how things run. So they offer 10 hours per week, Mondays and Fridays for 2 hours, and Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for 2 hours. But again, it's on our farm site here on campus. That's run in part by Abby, but as well by our part-time technicians talking about there. On the next slide, you'll see that there's a lot of collaborations that are occurring with our basic needs center as well. So I already mentioned donating food to the Knights Pantry, but in addition to that, there are several events that are hosted throughout the semester. 2 events that we'll go ahead and plug that are coming up on Monday, March 24th. They're doing a tortilla making workshop in T341E. That's in the T building on the 3rd floor. For those of you that don't know, in that room, we have an actual kitchen that we use both for instruction, but also for events like this, where we can basically show students how to do things in the live kitchen. There are cameras set up to really neat locations. So if you haven't been there, I encourage you to check that out. On Wednesday, April 16th, they're hosting a food justice event in the Quran Plaza. So there'll be a panel discussion there. They'll be donating food and produce that we seeds and seeds like that. We care with students and just learn more about farming in San Diego. The next slide discusses or highlights some of the events that are going on with the Mental Health Counseling Center as well. So in addition to collaborating with Basic Needs, we also collaborate with mental health. So Blooming Minds, you might see those emails come out. That happens on Tuesdays a couple times throughout the semester. So one of them already passed. But on April 15th and May 13th, there are 2 more that are coming up there. And essentially that's just an opportunity for students and anyone else interested to meet on the farm site and kind of learn about farming as a form of meditation, as a form of mental health. And so they go through journaling and learning how to work on the farm and just making it a more positive experience for anyone that's interested in doing that, even if you're not associated with the curriculum or instructional aspect of the program. And then last slide here, or the next slide here, is just a program that was carried in February. We're again collaborating with the Mental Health Counseling Center for celebrating Black History Month, where they did a kind of presentation about the history of collard greens and then learning how to harvest them, how to cook them, and kind of going into all that experience as well. So just again highlighting things that our program has done on campus outside of instruction, and then Betsy's going to talk a little bit more about what we're trying to strive for.
This is where the rubber hits the road, right? This is where we show what we can do and the partnerships we've had with various centers, with bringing in our students and bringing that energy to support what's next for the Seeds at City Farm. How are we going to sustain that funding? And how can we continue putting on this kind of programming in very creative and collaborative ways? Currently, we're working on a USDA grant. It comes due at the end of this month. It comes due at the end of December. Big one in December, the grant is about $1 million. We're putting all our eggs in that basket. But all the work that we're doing right now is sort of setting us up for success also for that next grant. But we have various grants on the horizon. I'm working with Abby and with Kevin and district grants and contracts office with applying for other grants, like regional grants, state grants. I just submitted a strong workforce grant last night after Tasha's presentation. They really simplified the link to apply for strong workforce funding, so that application link for requesting more NAD support and for a form coordinator. Right, and we're working currently with CCAP, with Genevieve in partnership with San Diego High School to bring some of their students onto our campus as well to set aside seats in our application process. Next slide. Next slide. So the next piece on the ADT pathways.
So going into the curriculum side of things with our agriculture program, some of the things that we're trying to work on is kind of just simplifying our pathways for students, making it a more clear pathway toward getting them in and out with a degree and with something to show for the class that they're taking. So one thing we've started to plan is kind of just creating these one-year plan pathways for students to be able to know what classes to enroll in order to get their certificate or their degrees. So this is just one example of one that we've created for the ADT and agricultural sciences, where there would take 10 units in the fall and 10 units in the spring. So obviously this doesn't apply to every single student that we have. We have a very diverse population of students that take classes based on different types of schedules. But if they wanted to get in and out within a year, they have enough classes. The last slide that's on there is just showing all the different certificates and degrees. Next slide, please. That shows all the different certificates and degrees that we offer within our program. This is kind of a lot. We've been discussing this a bit recently, and we're kind of thinking of taking a more of a less and more approach, where instead of offering all these different degrees and certificates, where students kind of get confused about what they should be doing. We want to condense this down into just the two major ADTs, the two associate degrees, as well as just one certificate. So we're working on just condensing this and making it a more simple pathway again for students to be able to know exactly what classes they should take and what time they should take it, so they can get in and out with a certificate.
Last slide is I think the Q&A. There you go.
Good question.
I do.
Jump in there, tell me. How was the pitch? Did it?
I got it across. Actually, I had to do it twice. The first one I was ready to go, and all of a sudden I look out and Cyprian says, "Stop!" He wasn't ready. So I had to hold the ball back. But it went well, thank you. You were talking about the one certificate, and I like that idea. Is that also going to be an opportunity for something like maybe our high school students get to participate in, maybe have a certificate before they come?
Yeah, I think we actually skipped. If you go back to the one that says sustainable agriculture revised curriculum, it's a couple slides back.
And that's okay too.
We believe you. We believe you.
But the short story is that we're working on trying to figure out the CCAP.
I mean, especially like we're looking this summer, doing the summer programs, right? So if they came in summer and then did a fall and spring or something like that, so it's all they can walk away with.
And that's the genesis of the grant proposal that we're currently applying for, the one that's actually in this month. We're with 3 high schools and to develop that CCAP dual enrollment pathway.
Any other question? Let me commend the work. Oh, yes.
That's all he knows. How do you volunteer?
Yes. That's a great.
I'm glad you asked.
Great question. We're developing banners and pop-up flyers and whatnot to post over by the orchard and Seeds Farm site so that you can just click on the QR link and it goes straight to volunteer, to when the food bank happens and the different events, so that you can just sign up there, and also so you can donate to them. I also want to shout out to Roxanne for helping us set up the cashless pay system. That was a game changer. When we didn't come with cash to buy the veggies, now they were.
And can anybody volunteer or just be a volunteer?
Come on, come on. If I get in trouble for it, I get in trouble for it, but come on, come on.
That you never get in trouble. You make our life lively. You never get in trouble. Let me acknowledge Kevin and Abby and Letty for the work that they're doing, and let me just state for the record. There's a saying where I come from, like the word on the street, the word on the street for a while was that the college was trying to get rid of seeds, and this presentation validates that that was never a part of a discussion that made its way to me anyways. And that from the time I arrived on campus, I acknowledged the jewel that seeds is and that huge opportunity. And so it is good to hear under the current leadership that we're moving to implement the inclusion of volunteers in a high school students to create that pipeline of folks. And this is about social justice, and that farm represents social justice in an area of a food desert where when you go south of here, you're not going to find a Whole Foods. Matter of fact, the last grocery store that was there was, I believe, a Walmart grocery store, and it was closed down. And so this is necessary for the students we serve to learn about healthy living, growing fruits and vegetables in a non-pesticide kind of way. Now, certainly, there are aspects of seeds that are on the wrong side of the 50% law. There are aspects of it that could be on the right side. So we are working with Letty to try to figure this out. Our theme this year is reimagining, and what I just saw is you all reimagining what seeds would look like in the future. That might also include condensing the amount of farmland that we have. We talked about that. We recently went on a tour, and I'm going to provide an updated item number 7, like the farm land that is between the gym and the tennis court is an area of attention for us in the amount of things that are happening over there. And our ability to be over there and the space that we primarily use on this side. Seeds is also a very important part of Measure HH. I believe either in the 2nd or 3rd phase of it will call for the building of a permanent classroom over there and reimagining what that area between seeds and the Seville will look like. And so again, just want to commend Kevin and certainly Abby, who I had a chance to meet, although she's been here for a while. It was good to meet her as we met several months ago about what could this look like. And they have my full support. Seeds is a regular place when I am giving a tour of the campus that I stop, that I bring donors, trying to get people to write checks for us to make it sustainable. Right, we got sustainable agriculture that we need to make sustainable on the campus. And so I realize the history. There's a lot of debates or commentary on who started it. And I love hearing the stories of when it was started and how it was started. But I also love hearing the planning of ensuring that it's going to be here for future generations to come. So again, I commend you all for the efforts and thank you for the presentation. Any other conversations, questions before we move on?
Probably, and I think you did already give a shout out to Javier and his
Absolutely,
Javier,
Javier,
yes.
It would be very difficult to run a 1-acre farm, a greenhouse on a T building. That requires a lot of upkeep and maintenance, so thanks to their help.
Yes, Justin.
Yeah, I just also want to commend Letty, thank you in terms of your leadership of not only keeping it alive, but expanding it, because this is very comprehensive. I also just want to call attention to the fact that Mona Alsorani is beginning to play the supporting role in making sure that the changes that were happening, that were putting seeds on to some degree to the side, because I know there was some personnel changes and who were part of that process, moved on to other campuses, or to other career options, but I just a little bit of the background, Mona was very instrumental in raising the issue of the need for more support, outside of the people who are doing the work, but also to the board. She raised the type of board, and I just want to, acknowledge that because she does a lot of this type of work behind the scenes to support faculty and to support their projects, and sees is extremely important. I remember I wasn't part of it I was an observer, but I remember how it changed the whole sort of atmosphere of the campus. I remember it brought so much life, literally, but also in terms of students, especially in our Chicano Studies department, and a lot of our students were very interested and connected to this program. So I'm very happy that it's going to have a long life on campus.
Thank you, and I see Mona has joined us online. Mona, we said earlier, we hope you feel better. Moving on to item 4, unless there's anything else. The district has been going through a process to consolidate the DL for the campus, right? Let me qualify this. This is not all the other DLs, but that is coming. And let me also be clear, this is not censorship, but this is bringing the DLs under some level of control to deal with things I'm sure we've all experienced, and that is the reply all and other efforts like that, where frankly, there is a lot of research that says the more emails people get, the less likely they're going to read them, and particularly when we get stuck in these DL reply alls about things that just don't involve us. And so what that will amount to is that there are 7 individuals who can approve an email to be sent. We do have cases where people have sent out emails that do not align with AP 3720 or AP 3721 proper usage of the DLs or emails. Now, look, I support Girl Scout cookies and bake sales and all of those things, but that's not necessarily how the DL is supposed to be used, nor the reply all and things of that nature. So I'm bringing this to your attention. It was already being discussed at the board, in the district governance council. All of the academic senate presidents and others have been involved in this communication. And so I'm bringing this forward so that you all are aware. There's also a very real security threat that is connected to this. The people try to gain access to our emails and click this and things of that nature. Any questions about this? This is supposed to go into effect in April. There will be an email that will come out from the district. What will happen is when you send an email, it'll first go to one of the 7 and they'll have to approve it to be able to go out. That's really what this is about, and that is for the main San Diego City College DL list. This is not affecting the DL for the deans or the supervisors or the faculty. This has no effect on that. This is just the main DL. Any questions?
So I'm just gonna put the obvious out there. So 7 people, 1 of 7 will check the email and approve it. So if I'm really just running behind, I need this to get posted within the next 24, 48 hours, is that gonna be enough time to get sort of posted?
Ask that question of me in May.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, because somebody's gonna try to figure that out, right? Like, when is my deadline so I can get it posted?
Yeah, our goal just in general is to respond to emails within 24 hours. That is usually the goal. I can tell you, just responding to my work emails that I receive directly from me as a full-time job. And unfortunately, I'm in meetings like this most of the day, so I don't get to sit at my computer at best. Matter of fact, I wanna say about 2 weeks ago was I had 3 hours at my desk. I was playing some music on Pandora, shocked the heck out of Angel. But we will figure it out. It'll work. You know, I've been on college campuses that had very strict email policies, and I thought that they were too strict. When I got here in our wonderful district, I realized why they were strict about the emails, just the volume. In my office hotel, I even today had a conversation with them, like, look, can we cut down on some of the inefficient emails so that we can focus on the ones that we really, like, that I really need to be paying attention to? Because to what Tilly is saying, like, my biggest fear is missing an email that I really need to respond to. With the volume of emails that I receive. Any other questions or comments? Please, we will keep this on the agenda for May so that we can give some time to see if this is working. The beauty of making a change or reimagining something is if it doesn't work, we can always go back to the way that it was. And I'll get copied on every conversation at the college. If there are no questions, we'll move on to number 5, which is an update. On April 29th at 3 p.m., the chancellor will do a EEO presentation. It is going to be videotaped. This is the presentation on the blind screen that has been piloted at Miramar College. And so there is a desire for the district to move in that direction. I wish I could go into more details about this, but that's what the presentation is. So if it interests you, please mark the calendar. If you can attend, it'll be videotaped and emailed out. I have not seen the presentation myself, but I can tell you this, since Miramar piloted it, they have increased the diversity of their faculty prior to doing it. The other thing, there are some things I can tell you. They've typically they remove what college you went to. They remove the name, your name. It lists your qualifications and things of that nature. There are several colleges in the state that have moved, community colleges that have moved to this model. And all of the available research points to that this is a new way to do screening. So if you'd like to learn more, please plan to attend the April 29th presentation by the chancellor. Any questions? Number 6 is very, very important and also connected to number 8, but let me turn it over to Tilly.
Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. See if I have enough handouts. I just happen to have these from yesterday, so. And if you've seen it before, I apologize. You're going to see it again.
And again.
And again.
And again.
And then I did send some handouts that maybe we can also post for our people online as well. But I had the opportunity to go and speak with the Chair Academy yesterday and talk to them as well. We've been speaking to quite a few places and have been on there already. Anyhow, when you start to take a look at, we have faculty, employees having the language that I'm wanting to shift to a different way. I've heard people say, we're being cut, we're cutting classes, we're cutting this and that. So really, I really wanted just to come back and have the conversation of where we are, coming out of home harmless, what that looks like, what that means. We've had these conversations for a couple of years. And one of the shifts that did occur for us that is different than had been in the past. And that is that we are now being allocated our funding, our FTES, by what we actually earn. So let me repeat that, well, our actual earning. So previously, let's just pull a number out of the sky and say that our target was 8,000. And we didn't achieve 8,000 FTES, but the next year we built 4% off that 8,000, a deficit that we had already been in, right, that we didn't achieve. That's what we were doing previously. And that's what happened to us in 23, 24. So when you look at next year, 25, 26, It's not based on how wonderful we're doing this year. This year, we're doing fantastic with our scheduling, budget improvements, all those types of things, scheduling has changed. But that's gonna be great when we look at 26, 27. For next year, which is 25, 26, we have to go back to the actuals we earned in 23, 24. So if you look at this page, and right at the bottom, highlighted in yellow, will tell you what our actuals that we earned. You can see our target was 8,120. We only earned 7,500. So based on that 7,500, that's what we get the following next year, but we're gonna try to grow like a 2% off of that. Right, so it just gives them, as you do the calculations, you can read through, basically it gives us a number of like 511 FTEF. What does that really mean to anyone? Not a whole lot, unless you're actually in the middle of all that. But what you will probably compare to is this current fabulous year that we had. We have like 563 FTEF. Now we're moving to 511. What does that feel like? We're shifting, we're shifting, we're not getting, we're shifting, we're getting exactly what we. That makes sense? Need your help to help us have
Need your
this
help. Please.
conversation with
we need your
individuals.
help.
We are not cutting. This is just what we earn. Now, can we continue to earn more? Yes. I anticipate that this next year, we're gonna earn all of it. And we're gonna be able to get to not move all the way up, but it's gonna be a very slow plateau, right? Just like a small growth like that. There are some talking points here that I've captured, and I know Ricky, we can go over this together. I just really, really wanted to make sure that people understand that it wasn't, we're not being punished. It's not because we did something wrong. What we did is we're getting what we earned.
Miramar didn't steal all of our FTEF. I mean, we've heard some very interesting things. And what I would bring to your attention is that we held a forum in the Black Box last year that had chairs there and the academic senate president, the president-elect, where our chancellor went over this and said that this was coming. Now, no one did anything wrong. I want to just reiterate to bring emphasis to the great job that Tilly just did. And that is to remember when we come out of hold harmless, then we're held to what the state is funding for growth, which is 0.5%. That is what is available from the state, right? So let's talk about this from a global standpoint. Governor comes out with a January preliminary budget, then there's a May revised, then the California Constitution says the state budget has to be signed by June 30th. That sets the standard for what is available for California community colleges for funding. From there, and along the same path, the district is using the district allocation formula to do, or what's really known as the CAM. There's the CAM, there's the BAM. To dictate what the college's budget is. From there, Tilly, working with the deans and the chairs, also look at what was earned prior. I am not involved in any of that process, except for trying to clarify or explain or educate when people need clarification. So we really, really, really need your help because there's a lot of formulas and processes involved in this. I really need the help from those of us, by show of hands, who at the table was, I was gonna say at City College, but I guess I am gonna say at City College in 2008, 9, 10, 11. Who was at City College, right? Now, I would not like to predict a recession. But there's a very real definition of a recession. What I would like to do is call your attention to more like 2010, 11, and 12, where there was stagnation. right? When you talk about a 0.5% in growth, that pretty much is stagnation, right? It's not keeping up with inflation. By default, our expenses are rising quicker than our funding from the state. I actually predict that the state is probably gonna go to 1.5%. Right, if I was reading the tea leaves, I think we're probably going to see the May revise and the final budget show this growth closer to 1.5%. That's still not the same when we've been growing between 8 to 10% the last several years, including this. That's why it feels like a cut. Because if we've been growing at, let's just use a round number, 9 or 10%, and then the state's only funding 1 to 2%, that is stagnation, that is slowing this down coming out of COVID.
Thank you. The other piece I want to just add on there, on the second page in the blue table that you see, these are not set in stone. I have to try and figure out like where do we put the FTF for the whole year? And then I have to give it to the chancellor's office so that they can start doing some numbers that they do, et cetera. But I also did this, if you look, there is hardly anything in summer, hardly anything in intercession. And that really freaks people out because transfers, et cetera. But the biggest areas are fall and spring. The reason we have to do that is that's where we have our contract faculty and are required to make sure they have their workload. They have to get paid. Okay, and that's just part of the contract that I can't be saying, no, I'm gonna pay you in the summer, but I'm not gonna pay you in the spring, it just doesn't work that way. So it may look, and people are feeling like we really don't have much of a summer, that's where we are. Now, if we ended up and we're lucky enough to get something later, can we boost our intercession or our spring? Sure, probably, but all the faculty in the room already know, we've already submitted our schedules for summer and fall. Right, we're still just trying to confirm those right now, so this wouldn't have any confirmation until, what did you say, June, maybe? Maybe June. So we just have to live with in our meetings and where we are.
This is the way things work in California. I don't like it, but I've become accustomed to it. The other thing I would say is I'm not as worried from a budget standpoint for 25, 26, it will be 26, 27. So if we're having a challenge understanding what's going on for next year, there is a very high likelihood. I mean, let me remind us how community colleges are funded. Who's looked at their 401k or 457 lately, right? We know what's going on with the stock market under this current administration. And historically, if you look at the recessions that have occurred, a large majority of them have actually occurred under Republicans. Not all of them, but a great deal of them. The other, and that's not political, that's from a historical standpoint. The other thing that is directly affecting our funding, or does, is the housing market, property taxes. Are people buying houses in San Diego or throughout the state? Not really, because of the interest rate spike. So those things affect the amount of money. Now, if you think of this as a bell curve, right, we're coming out of this period, hold harmless, and now we're here. 26, 27, we're monitoring very closely because there is likely that there'll be an economic downturn, which at that point, I would be more concerned about negative growth versus the 0.5% or 1.5%. So I really need, as Tilly has said, we really need your help explaining this to people, because there are some folks who we've explained it to a number of times who have legitimate concerns that don't align with what's on here. Questions, comments?
I had one more thing to add.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, if you don't mind. This came to my attention, and she said that I could share. America Martinez is our chair of Chicano Studies, Chicano Studies. And, they didn't come to her, but other people were going to other colleagues saying, hey, I think your area has been taking out the FTF from my area. And so I really want to bring that up because that is not how it works. And as it is, I made an error and I underfunded this department and by one FTEF because I didn't even give enough for their full-time faculty. They were supposed to have 10 for the year minimum and I gave 9. So I owe them another FTEF. So I didn't want people to go out there saying, your students are taking from my students. That's really not the conversations we need to be having. We need to be having is like, how do we retain our students, right? I just wanted to bring that forward because I know it was bothersome to her. We did talk about it yesterday at the chair meeting as well. And just asking everyone to just please come to the source. And if you don't know where to go to, call me. I'll be happy to address those issues.
Do you want me to put those slides on? You sent a presentation for that. Picture.
No, I don't need them. I think I went over them. It's okay. Then thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions, but first I want to thank you for clarifying that because it has been circulating this misinformation that Chicano Studies is somehow the suction cup for all this FTF, while we're also,
advocate.
I don't have another word for it, but while we're also facing cuts.
Yeah.
At least compared to last year. But my two questions, one is, trying to understand and navigate through this, if we're being funded for fall 2024, fall 20. What's that?
23, 24.
Right, but for fall 2025, 2026.
It lags a year.
Okay, so that would mean that 2026, 2027, we would be receiving basically a big bump because of our increasing enrollments.
Assuming that there's funding for the state to do that.
Okay, so it's tied to the growth percentage that they're funding.
We had a great year this year.
Yeah.
So-
Your
Yeah,
department's
it's
high.
tied to two things though, Justin. It's tied first to the availability of funding for the state. 2, how did the other colleges in the district do? Right, so the district gets its allocation of FTEF or enrollment based on item 9. And then we are allocated it based on actuals. Right?
Right, okay.
That's where the whole Miramar piece comes into the discussion and that they're shifting enrollment from city to Miramar. No, like during that time, Miramar outperformed us. And so and we told folks that this was coming, like every year for the last 3 years, we've had this discussion that once we come out of Hold Harmless, we're going to get funded based on what we actually produce. And that's every college in the district. It just so happens that during that time, Miramar outproduced us. Let me also try to get ahead of, and I know you got one other question, well, City College has more part-time students than Miramar. There's some truth to that, but it's not the same truth that there was prior to pre-pandemic, right? So post-pandemic, Miramar has a greater number of part-time students than it did pre-pandemic, right? So please, when Tilly talks about come to us, if you hear these things, at least let us level set with you before you run with a position on something. And I'm sorry, you had 2.
Well, that was why our chair contacted, me, right? Because we had just heard it the day that she emailed. But it did come at us also through members of the academic senate who basically were promoting this idea that the cuts were being unevenly applied. Or reductions.
Yes.
But my second question is, how then were the reductions determined? Is there a schematic or some kind of criteria or formula that were used? Because this is it is a pretty significant reduction. And so I think that would also go in some direction in helping us answer that, address that misinformation or misunderstanding.
Sure. So I don't allocate to the department level. I allocate to the school level. And I did that in working with the deans when they put in for their request.
Mhm.
So I said, here's how much we're potentially gonna have last year, for December. And then they put in the request, well, they're good, they put in like 100 more than I have to offer. So they always put in more, that's potentially what they do, so they've already set that bar. And then we just used what they had already put in and distributed that percentage that they put in for their school.
But if I could drill down a little bit on what I believe Justin's question is, in addition to what you shared, is that the dean should be using data with the chairs in terms of productivity,
And that's what
completion rates, what classes made last time, what the proposed schedules are, but that, to Tilly's point, is happening at the dean level, not at the vice president level. The other thing that I've been thinking we should add to this list, this is a living, breathing document. Every time we have a discussion with someone, we add to it. There are programs that have to have enrollment. Like I'm thinking of nursing, right? Because those students have to have certain number of sections, and they have a significantly less required by the Board of Nursing student to teacher ratio, right? So those things, Justin, are also guiding it, right? We know English has a mandated cap. So those things go into this formula. And I hate to say it, but there's a lot of math involved in getting to the answer to your question, which is at the dean level, adjusting, addressing, assessing. But the simplest way to say it would be what classes are likely to fill and which ones are not, and whether or not they have room for experimental, or whether or not students need a certain class to graduate. All of those things factor in.
And there's also other things that are happening now, people don't know with our strategic enrollment management projects we're working on, predictable pathways, trying to sequence our programs and properly sequence that we have things on the catalog that just drives Clarissa nuts, that we have so many classes out there that we never ever offer and shouldn't even probably be in programs that we're trying to get through and eliminate those things. It's gonna not be tomorrow that we finish that, right? It's gonna take us a little time. But to your point about like, how is that? I do have historical data that I looked at since before I got here, and it was all over. So it was never in a rhyme or reason. But things that we, myself and the deans, and we're looking to try to invite the chairs to come maybe in May to sit down and say, how does that look like? Because I can go ahead and start to do these charts for the next 2 years, even just using the number we have now. Do you know what I mean? So that we can say as a campus, we want to support this program this year. Next year, we want to do this. And that's kind of some stuff that we're looking to do. I mean, it's time for us to get to that. My goal is that when someday, not tomorrow, not today, someday when the next VPI comes to this campus, that the campus can say, here is our process.
When the next week,
How
wait
we
a
do
minute,
that.
did I get?
No, I said someday. But someday, I mean, I don't want them to walk in what I did and said, go figure it out, right? And we've been working together trying to figure out how are we doing this? And we didn't have a process set, so.
And I would also add, Justin, that, look, we're always open to a discussion. There are going to always be perceived winners and losers. And this is both a science and not a science, that we're expecting that the deans are working with the chairs and using the available data on both ends to advocate for a schedule that is in the best interest of students, given the real parameters like certain, full-time faculty have to have a certain load, and all of those things factor into this. I wish I could give you one sheet that went into everything, but every school is different. I mean, I'll use English, I'll use nursing, like I can use programs that just have very different requirements to run, and the cost factor and the productivity factor all of those things weigh in, but we depend on the deans to drive that discussion with the chairs. If folks are looking for one concrete answer, the challenge is not everybody has the same number, unit value of courses, the same number of faculty. Does that answer your question?
It does, I mean, and I understand that, I mean, our dean got promoted to the VPI at CE in the transition, so I'm not sure, and I'm not the chair anymore, so but I'm not sure, you know, to what degree that can be explained in our particular experience, because I think you were filling in till Will was brought into this position, but I do appreciate the, you know, the reaffirmation that this is a very deliberate process that takes all these things into account, because I understand that that's been the practice. I mean, you brought up 2012, I remember that's when we started the first, you know, sort of specific approach towards enrollment management, in which we brought the deans, chairs together, and, you know, and then we created criteria in the academic senate for there to be, you know, a process in which all of these things are taken into consideration, because back in 2008, 2009, there were 20% cuts to 30% cuts right across the board, and faculty were understandably very concerned about the. So I understand that process, and I'm glad it's being reaffirmed, and I'll report that, as well as promoting, you know, to the faculty to attend these town halls. I'll be reporting that it's not just 20 or 30% cuts across the board, because that's what people are saying, and I don't know exactly where this is coming from, because it's not coming from the academic senate. But there is a lot of perception that there's this sort of clear cutting across the board. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and as you hear from people, please refer them to Tilly and their team, because we are having individual conversations with people who are sharing, and that's how we put this together, right? As we have those discussions. And we also have a number of new chairs. We have a number of new deans. And so we all are going through this together. The last thing I'll say, unless there are other questions, is I want to be clear that we want to keep the enrollment at City. Right? We want to keep the enrollment here because it's harder to get it back when it leaves, particularly if we're going into a budget climate where there may not be growth. We want to keep the enrollment here because there is a financial factor connected to these decisions. And I also want to clarify, because another one I heard, this might be my fault, is item number 14 is emphatically not connected to any of this other than FYI, right? So the other thing we heard is, oh, we're having reductions because we were 2.7 million over budget last year. No, that's just an FYI. We made no cuts because of that. It is directly connected to our actuals from 23-24. We are trending about $500,000 over budget right now. I don't like that look, Roxanne. But we have some structural things from the district that I advocated for today that, Roxanne, you'll be happy to hear fresh off the press. We had a meeting this morning with our vice chancellor, of finance, Tilly was there, as well as all the VPIs. And I asked for two things that have been driving me nuts since I got here, and I love our district. It's the best district I've ever worked for. But they do this thing with vacancies where they don't fully fund our vacancies, and they may be backfilled with a person. And Dan has assured me that going into next year, they're going to give us all the money for the vacancies up front. The other thing they do is that we may hire an adjunct and they have a rate for someone who only has a master's degree, and an adjunct might have a doctorate, or standard benefits, and that person may have 6 children, or benefits such that their benefits are more than the other did. They are working to figure that piece out too. I think that'll get us to about $300,000 or $400,000, hopefully. And so we should be in a better financial situation than we were last year. Because what it makes it hard for Roxanne and John to do is to guesstimate what all these charges are going to be, or actually, what are they called? The augmentations that come in May are built on speculations, and some of them we don't actualize. Whereas in other places where I work, they gave us all our money up front and said, look, this is what you got, live within your means. Whereas here in our district, we get all these augmentations, like in May, it's hard to predict which ones are coming or which ones are not. That's just part of the piece. It's more complicated than that, but those are two pieces I've been trying to fix or address since I got here. And it looks like we got some traction with the new vice chancellor of finance. Any questions?
I just want to put
Yes.
something on a positive note, with this.
This is all positive.
It is, but I'm
It's
being
real.
more, but when you look at our numbers for the annual, just the fact that we're having conversations for annual is tremendous. When I came here, we were being given a TEF by semester, by term. I came here and all of a sudden it's like, Tilly, go create the summer schedule. I'm like, oh, I thought that was already done, right? And then I know Roxanne, there was some changes that happened in those couple of years, but now the fact that we're able to get a number for the year and also be able to swap it out and move it from summer into the fall intercession or spring is incredible, because that's wasn't the case. We had to live within whatever that was. I think that's just something we should. Woo, something.
Any questions before we
Had to get
move on?
moving.
Campus safety update, let me acknowledge very real concerns that I am hearing from various places on campus, various constituency groups. There is not a day that goes by that we don't talk about campus safety. People's well-being. We hear your concerns, and what I asked Caesar to do before the meeting started, we put together safety. I'm always looking for ways to get information in the hands of the people who have concerns. So we put together a safety video. And how many people watched the video, Caesar? 16 people. We sent that in a newsletter, or actually I sent it
Multiple times.
about a week ago. So we're gonna send it out again, because a lot of the questions I'm hearing are actually in the video, so we need your help again. That when people bring to you safety concerns, to ask them, hey, have you watched the safety video? Have you talked to John? Have you been to the health and safety committee? But let me talk about some of the things we are doing, and I am doing myself to try to get ahead of this. I walked with Letty and the entire exec team to the farm, because that is an area of attention on campus. And so that area needs some more lighting. It needs to be fenced off or gated off in a more intentional way. So I am going to be meeting with Joel, our vice chancellor over facilities, this week to escalate, fast track some of these things that have been taking longer than I'm comfortable with. That includes lighting on the LRC between the walkway. Like, we know where the areas of interest on the campus are. This is one of the challenges of being in a multi-college district, is that Roxanne and her team, Jay will do, Steve will put in all the work orders, will get in the queue, and it might take the district 3-6 months to get some. And so I have elevated these projects that are listed here, and one that isn't listed here that I want to talk about with with the vice chancellor over facilities, to say, look, there are some very real concerns on campus, and these people need to see movement in these areas. And a lot of it has to do with lighting. Now, there are some projects that we have completed that we just didn't talk about. One of them, a lot of it has to do with Lot 3 and the landscaping projects that are going on around Lot 3 and the LRC, which are areas, frankly, that we find people frequently who are on campus for the wrong reasons. And so we're trying to get rid of shrubbery and things that attract the wrong kind of people to campus. And so we're making every effort to do that. And I'm trying to choose my words wisely because I also want to make it a point to not criminalize people who are unhoused, right? Because some of the folks who come to campus have to do so because they need a place for a shower or a place to charge their phone. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is people who come to campus for the wrong reasons. And so we're trying to escalate these lighting projects. There is going to be a camera project, and no, this is not going to be a police state, and there are not going to be cameras on every building. But there are some areas such as, frankly, the bookstore, that there are probably 2 or 3 break-in attempts daily. Now, let me also say there's very strong support for cameras, and there's very strong, equally strong opposition. I am clear as someone who has studied this that a camera is not going to stop someone from doing something that we don't want them to do. I'm also clear that it's not going to catch them in the act. But I'm also clear that some of our folks who are on campus more frequently would feel safer if they saw a camera. And there's nothing I can convince them of otherwise or vice versa. But there are some areas that we are planning to put up some cameras. No decisions will be made until that comes here for us to have a very active discussion about. That I promise and commit to you all. Roxanne and her team are bringing back the Night's Watch. It has taken the district longer than expected for the cadet program to come into existence. I'm going to quote Letty now and say, I'm going to ask for forgiveness. I'm not asking for permission when it comes to safety. I'm not asking for permission. If it's going to make people safer on campus, we're going to do it and ask for permission afterwards. Safety, along with student success, is my #1 priority. I would like to work with the leaders of the Academic Senate, for all the constituency groups, and Susan to get a safety survey out there. Because some of this is perception, some of this is reality. And I'm trying to wade through both of those very real things. Every time I go to a meeting, and I'm not going to do it here because I don't want anybody to tell on themselves. But typically, if I go to a meeting and I say, how many people have the Live app? 3/4 of the people don't have it. That is your direct way to communicate, not only with campus police, but people like Sandy and her team and facilities. If there's something, a light out, a door ajar, door broken, a window broken, that is your direct way to communicate with us to be able to address any of your concerns when it comes to safety. So please encourage people, and John has done a tremendous job going to the departments and putting up banners and flyers to get people, but people still are not downloading the app. Yes, the district is going to a new app, but they're not there yet. I believe we purchased this app for another year, if I'm not mistaken. So we will continue to use this app. And then the last three other things, I was recently made aware of through the Health and Safety Committee that there has been several near misses in the crosswalk between the S building and Lot 3. Roxanne and her team got on this right away, ordered,
So they ordered the lights that have pedestrian walking caution, the large ones that will be on each side, that flash, there are lights. We also are printing A-frame signs that have.
slow down. Oh, I'm sorry.
That reflective in paper so that you can see it at nighttime. So when you're going up the hill or coming down the hill, your lights hit it, you'll still see the sign. It will be visible to those that are running up and down. So the signs will be here 20th. We plan to roll it out as soon as it gets there. We already have the A-frame ready to go. So by I would say Monday of next week, that the crosswalk will be lit up.
And John Boyce, what are you doing about that crosswalk in the city?
I'm reaching out to the city to see if they can enhance the safety of the crosswalk itself. And with the street departments, improve it to make it a more safe crosswalk. It's mid-block, so it's kind of important because you can get some speed up and it's a downhill slope one direction. So with all those things in mind, I think it's a high priority for the city to improve it.
When you do that, can you request on our behalf a stop sign on either side? Because I think that is the only way that we're really going to get people to slow down going down that hill. Because
Sure.
typically those going down the hill more than it is those coming up the hill, coming out of San Diego High School. I hope that this will get better once San Diego High School is done with their construction. Because not only do you have the normal traffic, but you have the contractors going back and forth down that street. Please come to my open office hours. If you have safety concerns, please work with your deans. Please work with your vice presidents. Give us a shot to fix it. We may already be working on it and you just not know about it. We may not know about it and would like you to bring it to our attention so that we can address those concerns. We regularly walk the campus looking for areas to include the area that is the walkway by Seeds and the LRC. Thanks to Daniel and the team in the LRC. We pretty much know the areas of campus that are of concern and either have things that are underway or are trying to figure out solutions to address people's concerns. Let me stop there and see if there are any questions or concerns or statements. Yes. Yes.
John Boyce is also working with Caltrans, the 17th Street, house neighborhood campus. So we're also working with them. With that. And two, I'm guilty of it. Make sure you use the crosswalk. It's 9 times out of 10, people just want, they walk from lot one and they just walk right across the street. So a lot of people, they turn that corner and they're thinking the crosswalk is further down, or they're leaving the garage and they're making that left or that right. People are in the middle of the street. I'm guilty of it. I just walk right across. Not me.
Yeah, and I would add that if I could, I would take down that wall. And I guess maybe there's some trash cans behind in that walkway between well, you can't take it down, but there's that concrete enclosure there that is it's a blind spot, right? Particularly if you're turning the corner or if you're coming out of the lot where child development is, it's a blind spot, particularly if people are, well, I'm guilty of.
We're gonna add a sign.
Slow down.
Slow down. Blind spot, look for pedestrian.
Yes, don't put my name there.
I just wanna add.
You said, well, I didn't know, I thought Jay, you had two things, was there two?
Oh,
Was
it's Caltrans, be mindful where use the crosswalk.
Yes, Roxanne.
I just wanted to mention for Susan and your team that Jay and John have safety surveys. So without reinventing the wheel or redoing the work, they already have them. Ready.
Yeah, and I specifically want to involve the constituency groups though, so that they can weigh in on the questions and the way the question is asked, because certainly as a researcher myself, sometimes the way or all the time, the way you ask the question will dictate the answer. So I want the leaders of the constituency groups to be involved in the final survey, because that is shared and participatory governance. Yes.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot to share, and I was planning to share a lot with you that you're not as well to hear as well. I'm an active local member of the home. And thanks to John with assistance and such we've got, and we've made a lot of this shows. I'm very grateful to your help and such, but when I hear and you voice that, yes, you've worked with Caltrans, but we're on a long wait list. And concerns that you voiced over a year ago still haven't been fixed. There's a problem. And that's why we were thinking, well, who needs to hear this? Do our elected officials need to hear this? Do Caltrans need to hear this directly? Who can take that baton farther, right, to help give you that? Make sure that that concern is seen and heard, because I hear it from my students, I hear it from my employees. So thank you, but we need more help. That's what I'm saying. Also for the surveys, I think students also should have a voice in this, because I hear from students and their faculty send them to me sometimes. So I take it in, report it, but there comes a point where I stop reporting because there's not enough paper to print on. Okay. So, and I absorb this and I don't know what to do with it. I share that health and safety, I have a 5-minute slot, that's all we can do, right? And then there are some things I think the district can handle. And if we have our district vice chancellor come to one of our health and safety meetings to hear our concerns directly, I think we can make a lot of progress as well, instead of us going to him. So I would really welcome that opportunity for maybe our faculty and students to talk to them about some things, namely our in-house neighbors that come back. So in December, the encampments were, well, 16th Street, 17th Street. We heard a lot from students and nursing faculty and such, and also by lot 3. The smells and the sights and things that our facilities folks are taking care of. Why is it our facilities folks who have to hose down those sidewalks and not the city? Not the city of San Diego. It's something that our city council members can get on. You know, that a certain perimeter around the college campus makes it a safe and caring campus for us, because we care for the mental health of our employees and our students.
Lenny, can I interrupt just real quick? And I would hope that you could turn your statements into questions. And let me give you an example. Angel, can you go into the calendar and pull up when I gave Steve, our local council member, a tour of the campus in these facilities? So my challenge is that things are happening that people just may not be aware of, that if we turn the statements into questions, you would actually get answers, right? And so I would say a large part of what I do as the president is exactly what you think the vice chancellor might actually be doing. That is actually my job, to meet with these elected officials and say, hey, we got a problem. And so very simply, I think there is more you could do. One, you could just pose the question. You would absolutely get an answer. Two, in your meetings with your vice president of instruction, because she's more likely to know that I'm having these things, I'm confident that you would get an answer. And if you didn't get an answer, that she is pretty vocal about getting answers. She and I regularly have 7 o'clock in the morning meetings and text messages. And so I would also just challenge this. One, put the things in writing. I would love to see them. Sounds like you may already have them. Give me an opportunity to provide you an update, because you might be surprised as to what has happened or is happening. And I have no problem with inviting the vice chancellor here. But here's the thing that I'll tell you, that I tell the vice presidents regularly. And I wish we could, I'm probably gonna go on record and get myself in trouble. But there's only one person over there that outranks me. There's only one person over there that outranks me, and he only outranks me in title. Right, so, but with that said, if that would make people feel safer is to have the vice chancellor come, easy, I'm meeting with him on Thursday, and I'll invite him. But I can tell you, there's nothing you're gonna say to him that I haven't already said, and that I'm not already working. That I promise you. Yes.
Yeah, so I want to try to push back a little bit on the narrative that's being generated here. Because on the one hand, when this was introduced, it was made clear that there's an intention to make people feel safer, whether or not people, whether or not it'll actually increase safety. And then there's another part of this, which is our unhoused neighbors, but then I think when we're talking about Caltrans, we're trying to encourage them to basically dismantle the encampments and push people farther away from the campus. So if I'm mistaken on that, please correct me, but I also want to, implore that we think about non-policing and non-punitive options in terms of how to increase safety or the perception of safety. So for instance, the lighting, I think probably is the most cost-effective way to make people feel safe, because when we're in a dark space, then our fears, whether realistic or unrealistic, play a role. And if there's places where unhoused people are sleeping, and if people would feel safer if there was lights, and maybe they would perceive that would discourage people from sleeping there, then these are non-punitive, non-policing ways to make people feel safer. But the idea that we want to put most of our attention towards pushing out unhoused people or pushing them farther away, or contributing to the idea that the presence of unhoused people is correlated to the increase in crime. That's simply not true. And our campus actually has, according to the district reports, okay, well, you can disagree, but I'd like to hear your response. But the policing reports that are sent out annually, they don't reflect a growing crime rate at San Diego City College, at least the ones that I monitor. But I do understand that there are certain issues that could be addressed. But let me just think radically and outside the box here. How about we actually create, instead of spending years and years building up more infrastructure to protect us from real or perceived the threat of a growing unhoused population, because I guarantee you it's only going to grow, because there's a housing crisis and we're living in the heart of the downtown where most of the existing resources in terms of the homeless shelters and the food banks are all around. So it's not going to go away. So if the problem is too many people are urinating in proximity to a building, then why don't we make a public bathroom available to the unhoused community? And why don't we put other facilities in there that they could use? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying. And then the other thing is, like you bring up, Ricky, there's a constant threat to the bookstore, like two or three times a day. I mean, that's pretty significant. So I'm just wondering, like, what other measures, could be taken to protect that? Is it a door that people are trying to break into, presumably? Or
Depends on the day, Justin.
okay, if it's shattered windows, why not replace it with non-windows? Why not create something that can't be shattered? And that way you wouldn't have to then build up another infrastructure to surveil. Even if we understand that may not prevent those windows from being shattered. So I'm just trying to put it out there that, because this is a discussion that has been going on for at least 2 to 3 years in terms of what are we doing to basically create this level of protection. And I'm just saying that there might be more cost-effective and more effective ways of doing it than just the policing, surveillance, and punitive.
And let me honor what you're saying, because one, you've given me some things to think about, as you usually do when we have these discussions, and I, for one, am not for the over-policing or the over-surveillance of any. I hope in my commentary, the majority of the time that I talked was about lighting and things of that nature, because that is what we've been focusing on, getting rid of shrubs in places that would lessen the likelihood of some of the things we've been seeing. There is a piece of this in terms of the unhoused population that is in close proximity to the campus that the city hasn't even figured out a way to solve. But one of the options that is available is a tent city that at least the city would like these folks to go to, right? I'm not going to make an opinion of that. What I do know is the facilities folks are having a tough time keeping up with some of the things that are occurring. To the point that now I absolutely have to go back and look at what the cost effective thing is with a bathroom or something of that's something honestly that I had never thought about. That now I assure you I'm gonna look into, because I do not intend to have us, and I don't believe it's people's intent. But it definitely sometimes comes across that way, this notion of criminalizing the people who are unhoused. And so I don't want to be party to that type of philosophy, but there are very real things that are occurring on campus that as a community, we have to contend with, for all the reasons that you pointed out, like where we're located, the layout of the campus, that we don't have a defined campus that you drive into and you drive out of. What I want to also honor, Justin, is that I hear people who have very real concerns. I see, particularly during daylight saving time, I would pinpoint the number of concerns increases when the daylights get shorter. They decrease when they get longer, which is why we brought, to Roxanne's credit and several others, this night's watch, which is just us walking around, kind of like a take back the night. So I assure you, we are seeking every non-invasive way to address this with facilities and structures. But we have to have these discussions, however uncomfortable people may be. That includes those who believe counter to the discussion that we're having right now. Any other thoughts, feedback? Look, folks, if you have an idea, I have to be willing to entertain the idea, even if it makes me uncomfortable. I am not for having cameras on every building. I've shared a number of stories that there's an unrealistic expectation that there's going to be somebody on the other end of that camera that is just not reasonable or even feasible or financially or otherwise. But I also want to honor that there are some people who feel very strongly in support of and against them. At least while I'm here, there's not going to be cameras on every building, every office. We don't even have the financial resources to do that, we wouldn't even if we could. Any other thoughts?
Yes, Justin, that in mentioning to Caltrans in my meetings with the customer service rep department at the Caltrans headquarters over in Old Town, and they said that part of the reason it takes several months to organize when they go to their properties, in particular 17th Street frontage of Caltrans from Russ Boulevard all the way down to F Street, I think. Took them a couple months this last time because they set up not just to clear the area out, but to help the people and get them the assistance that they need. And they had to coordinate it with a bunch of different departments and facilities and outreach to not just clear them out, but to get those folks the assistance they need, so they don't have to have that type of a living arrangement. So I was happy to see that they did get around to it this past weekend, but it took them several months with my requests and several other people's to put it all together to get those folks the help they need.
Yeah, and I think there's a other piece of this, Justin, notwithstanding the unhoused population, is just getting them to clean up their area of the property that they're on. And that's the other complexities to Letty's point. Which if it was a question I could answer too, because we regularly meet with the is it the downtown partnership who does the cleaning of the streets, right? And there's a cost factor there. They want like $100 grand. And so we have a partnership with them. But there's this the city contracts or the East Village contracts with the downtown partnership. So there's this finger pointing, Letty, that occurs between Caltrans, the city, and the downtown partnership of who's responsible to empty the trashes, I mean, shoot, I was getting emails and phone calls from the people who live in the building that is across the street from the MS building, because these trash cans hadn't been emptied for months. Well, they're actually the city's trash cans. Right, so I had to have meetings with the mayor, the mayor's office, and we wound up where I just said, Jay, can we have our people please empty these trashes? But they're actually the city's trashes, so there's some finger pointing that occurs. And I would be glad on another day to share with you all the meetings that I've been in with regards to some of the things that you are bringing up. And, you know, there is this very gray area of what is City College, what is East Village, what is downtown, and what does the downtown partnership actually clean up that they're contracted to do. That'll be a story for another day. Any other questions?
I just have a
Yes.
follow-up. Because I know Letty has a couple of pages on that list. So I just want to verify that you're saying, put those into questions and send them to you, bring them to you.
Well, yes, if you've seen them already and they're ready, you should see, I mean, the vice president should always have an opportunity to see them first. Because they may be able to answer them before it gets to me, but certainly I would like to see them. And I would like to be able to provide an update on what things we are working on actively versus things that maybe we hadn't thought about. You know, because a lot of our solutions actually come from, you know, either the people around this table or people on our campus who have ideas about how to address some of these concerns.
Okay, and I think that, because I'm also on the health and safety and committee with others, and it just seems that sometimes we bring the issues and they just sit in the air for a while, and we're not doing the follow-up. So if I need to take responsibility to do that, I can, I need to do that, just making sure that I have that.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on what the situation is, right? Of course, you all saw that we were not getting any progress even with the seeds area. That's why I went to go see it for myself, because some things that I haven't seen, it's easier for me to see myself. So when I do go into the meeting, I can say, look, I've seen this is what I want. I want stairs going down. I want a wall over here, and I want lights on the back. It's easier for me to say that when I'm in these meetings if I see it for myself, versus if it's something that I have seen and I'm already working on, I can say, look, you know, Letty, I'm already in meetings with the city council member who just walked the campus the other day. He's going to advocate with the downtown partnership. Like, you know, so there are things I may be working on, there may be things I haven't seen. And certainly if I haven't seen it, I'm going to go see for myself because it's easier for me to advocate. Is that we're running out of time?
Yes, we have 2 minutes and we have.
Okay, we have, this will be a standing item on College Council from here on out. Right, this will be a standing item. So any one of our constituency groups who wants to come talk about health and safety, this will from here on out, for the rest of my life, be a standing item on College Council.
Open
We-
office hours are next Thursday at 9 AM.
And that went out in an email, please stop by. Certainly other people stop by when they have concerns or problems, right? People are not shy about stopping by. If they want something, need something, or didn't get something. We are planning 2 town halls, one around enrollment management. Now you may say, well, why are we having one about safety? We actually just had one about safety. We had one last month. We shot a video and only 19 people watched it. So I am open that if there's better ways to communicate. And speaking of these 2 town halls, the enrollment management one is tentatively scheduled.
It's actually going to be scheduled on Tuesday, April 22nd.
And I'm going to mail these 2 home, Caesar. We're gonna mail it home to people. I'm gonna email it, I'm gonna do a video, and I'm gonna mail it home. And we're gonna mail this document to every home. Because again, I'm open to the fact that if we shoot a video about campus safety and what we're doing, and only 19 people watched it, I gotta look at myself and say, why are there better ways to get the information in the hands of people? Speaking of better ways, I'm gonna go to action, the action item. Thank you all for being patient. Welcome to College Council. We have a public art on campus request with our very own Terry, who is one of our amazing faculty members in the art department, and she has a guest with her who I will ask her.
My name is Diana Sa.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Terry,
Oh, Terry, yeah.
so the floor is yours.
You have the video? Okay. Not the video. Actually, John. This is the public art class on campus right now happening at the third semester.
Yeah, I am a returning student. I formerly did graphic design and now I'm finishing the art, studio art, transferring. So I'm helping her with a few things in the gallery, curating an exhibition about skateboarding that's coming up. So because of that, she brought this topic to her students, created different mural proposals. And the mural proposals are to show inclusivity and diversity and honor female in the skateboarding community too. So there's different ideas, but it's actually from the kids, and those are sketches too. Some of those are probably gonna get way better once we start getting up in the murals and having a little bit more direction from Terry and other teachers. They're not funded, which is good, so they're part of the curriculum.
So when I
The
looked
first
at,
one's a wire sculpture. So the first one's a wire sculpture hanging just like 2 feet big. And that one, yeah, it's pretty small little wire sculpture that hangs up in the.
so to put it in context, we have a public art process that requires anyone who would like to do public art, mural, the like, to go through that committee. That committee has a process, an application, they voted, and then it comes here for us to vote. I want to commend Terry and the entire committee, John Parker and anyone who sits on it, because we have done more art projects on our campus in my time here than frankly any other president in the history of this college. Now, in a perfect world, when I looked at this presentation, I was like, look, I really want to just turn this back over to the committee and not even come here. But then I realized that the moment I do that and there's an art project that somebody doesn't agree with, then they're gonna say why it didn't come here. So with that said, let me have a motion for approval of the proposed projects.
This is Sean, motion to approve.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Tilly. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious, we're voting on the 2 slides, the images that we just saw.
Just for.
There's 4. And I would ask humbly and respectfully, this is why it's important that we get these documents prior to the publication deadline, which is typically Friday. That would make your votes go so much quicker if the committee could see these things. Like I had the vantage point of seeing the PowerPoint because I asked for it prior. And so I would ask, again, respectfully and humbly for the vice presidents to work with their respective areas because it goes a lot quicker if the members of College Council could see these things prior to the meeting. But can you bring that back up for the slide?
Oh,
It did get approved by all the
Yes.
chairs and fine.
and it was received prior to the deadline. And sent out.
There's 4 different
And
locations.
good luck seeing that because I only got one.
There's 4 different locations. One's around the pink one's around the elevator. I think going, yeah, that one's like a girls' power one that's collage style. Some of these are collage style, some will be painted. Then the class will be doing this in the next 2 months. So
Which is this is also the elevator in the parking garage? The parking garage has officially turned into an art gallery.
Yeah.
And let me also say, I have been trying to have an event in there, but then you displace the parking. That's the part that I'm trying to figure out.
Drive-through, we're having some student art exhibitions here. We're having a drive-through event in the art space also. Yeah,
We got-
show the murals.
We got a first and a second. Justin's seen and others are seeing the samples. Any further discussion here? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to abstain or object?
I'll abstain,
Okay.
just because.
No worries. Motion carries. And I love this, and I even loved it even more when I saw it wasn't going to cost. Thank you all. The next item is, I'll turn it over to Susan Murray. We've discussed it a number of times, but I'll turn it over to Susan Murray, and we are going to vote on this today.
Yes, and this is an addition of a representative from the Ideas Council who have a seat on College Council. The Ideas Council would select who that representative is. We're not determining in advance who would take that seat. That's up to the council, but what we're voting on is to add a voting representative to College Council so that all of the reporting councils in our new governance structure have a seat at College Council. And the concern when this was on the agenda previously and Mona was absent, we did have an opportunity to discuss, and she emailed today to say that she is in support, even though she is ill, we can't be here.
She's on Zoom and she's already put in, I vote yes, but that was on the art piece. I'm sure she'll speak to.
Okay.
Motion for approval.
And Rogers.
Is there a second?
I said,
We will take Michelle, but I saw Justin's hand. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Oh,
Aye.
Further discussion. Sorry, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone want to abstain or object? Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you, Susan, for your patience. And everybody else who may have been waiting for that. With that said, the next meeting is April 15th. That is after spring break?
Yes.
Okay. We will see you all then. Take